wall.
Right.
And that's it. And still, number of the pro guys with whom I work, they're still doing the same drills that they learned in, summer camp as well. And by no means do we limit things to juggling. That's just part of it, right? So yeah, the website has pretty much most of our iHand drills, solo drills, partner drills, small group drills. We're working on about to add a section entirely for goalie coaches, how to coach the drills, how to utilize them in your camps.
Well, that's a good one to make sure they've got something that's focused properly and progression. Say if you've got a 5-day camp, they'll have a tool where they can be like, hey, I'm going to show either I'm going to show this directly to my kids, or I'm going to learn it so I can show it to my kids.
Exactly. And I hear all the time, and I always say, like, you can only be an expert in so many things.
Right. Coaches
approach me constantly like, man, our on-ice stuff is so good. We've aligned up speakers for this, and this, but I need to fill out 45 minutes or an hour every day. And by day 2, I'm out of drills for iHand.
Right. And you normally, like you talked about some of the big camps that you've gone to and NHL teams that have brought you in, but you can't be everywhere. So this is a chance to maybe do it online.
Yes. And I love coaching so much. I mean, I miss it, but I also, I'm a dad now. And so I will take that trade-off, but I really have a deep appreciation for anyone that coaches, and I mean it. And the conversations I had in St. Paul this weekend with just people who just want to help these kids, and I want to help those kids. Right. And so I'm trying to put that out there, at, an affordable rate that they can have access to these things. And I recommend they learn the drills themselves, which is no small task, but also help them make their camps better. If they're a season-long goalie coach, and how dare they have a career they have to be at where they're not there every day coaching peewees, but give your kids tools that they can use while you're gone, and just give them the tools they need to improve. So that's the vehicle with which we're going to try to get that out there is, and just going beyond in terms of what I see the average goalie, their knowledge base of number of drills. And it's not just the sheer number, it's the progressions and regressions, right? If a drill's too hard, we have regressions to make it easier. If a drill's too easy, you don't have to learn a new drill. You substitute in a different type of ball, or you incorporate both hands instead of one hand, and things like that. Where
or add numbers to the balls to add all kinds of different options that are all on the site. Yeah,
and on this site are, the drills. Like if I go spend a couple of days with a pro team, we do these drills. We're doing the hard stuff.
Yeah,
but those things are in there.
Okay. We talked about the tools that are in the bag that I saw in Otter's locker.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had them or if everybody gets them, but we've talked about strobes before.
Yeah.
Now, I know Flower uses them. I think since he left Vegas, the goalies there use them. The value of strobes, is this an area where have we hit the potential? Because it feels like the one where not everyone uses them.
Yeah.
But I know in our past discussions, you feel like there might be more there for goalies.
Yeah. And actually, I believe it was the first time Flower had ever used them was I got to go work with him and some of the other guys when they were with Pittsburgh. And we were in this tiny room, and I hadn't really fine-tuned the reaction boards yet. So we dragged 2 nets into this little room, and we had picnic tables on their sides, and there just tennis balls flying everywhere. And so they're an amazing tool, I would say, extremely underutilized. And I think some of it is people aren't sure what to do with them.
Right.
Most goalies who I've talked to that have tried them, I tried them once at a camp, and they say, yeah, those things are cool, or yeah, those things are hard, both of which are true.
Right. But them being hard is what makes them effective, I would think.
Yeah, it's just knowing what to do with them.
Right.
And so I equate it to if you ever played baseball and you threw a weight on the bat, so you have the bat, you swing it, feels, it's kind of heavy. You put the weight on there, it's super heavy. You swing it a few times, your brain gets used to that, and then you take the weight off and the bat feels super light.
So that actually would explain why Flower uses it in a pregame situation.
Yes, I would say that the way I describe the effect of it is it primes the visual system. So the original technology was by Nike, and they were doing studies on it, and they had proved the efficacy of it as a priming tool. They were about to look into its long-term benefits.
Right.
And then they sold the technology to Synaptech, and long-term benefits, I don't know. The guys with whom I use them regularly, they say they feel there is, but regardless, how I recommend people use them is as a primer before competition. And so we do the drill without them to get a baseline, right? Like I can kind of see like, all right, it's not, I'll do it with goalies in the net, right? Throwing balls off the board. All right, 3 went in, but it's not just that. I look at their movement, right? Like kind of double movements or little hitches, inefficient movements. Are they catching it cleanly or is it going off the thumb? And then we start at the easiest level. And typically when we first start, it's laughably hard, right? Like it's hard.
Yeah.
But the brain gets used to it. And what you're doing is you have to execute a task with less visual information. And you get used to it. And then I can see when it shifts where they're starting to make clean saves with it, right? And we do about 15. And then we put them on the forehead, take a minute, put them back on. And we move up a level, which
you can make it harder.
Yeah,
right? The strobes inherently are adjustable in terms of how much information they take away, depending on the set.
Yeah, and it seems counterintuitive, but the higher level you go, the slower it blinks. People usually think the faster it blinks, the harder it is, but the more slowly it blinks, the fewer times you'll see the puck or ball
in between
en route,
right? And
your brain has to fill in the blanks,
right?
And then you move up a level, and then it's brutally awful. Everything's going in, you're going the wrong way. But then you just see it. You can just see it and the goalie can feel it where it's like, okay, I can handle this. And then you repeat that process. And I mean, there are 8 levels, which I'd love to hear if anyone's found something to do with level 8. Cause it's like, it's just, I mean, I did this with, a local story did, footage on our work with Dubnik when he was with the Wild. And I encouraged the host to get in there and do it. And I mean, like, the second or third throw, I mean, he was in a suit and he had him on like level 4 because that's what Dubes was using him at, which I hit the guy right in the nuts. I felt so bad. He was a great sport. He showed it on TV. But anyway, coming back to it. So what you do.
Note to self, don't use snow glasses with Josh and the camera running. Or bring a cup.
Oh man. But the magic happens once you're like typically level 3 is where I go with, if you're doing a high speed drill, then you take them off and it's just awesome. You're just
everything
dialed.
Looks like a beach ball.
Yeah. And then, so from my observations, like with the big goalies is, I mean, I'm about coming up on the season where I'm just like praying I don't rip my rotator cuff because I'm throwing racket balls from 12 feet away as hard as I can. And I cannot get anything by them. 1, but 2, the efficiency of their movement. They look so calm. It's fun to watch.
Everything's clean and right at the ball.
Yeah. And so what I would say is like, any listener who bought a pair and they're just sitting, gathering dust, and it doesn't have to be a fast drill where actually, I got some feedback from my pros. I'm like, what do you think? They love the drills where they're in the net.
Yeah.
Right. But their feedback was, I can't replicate that on the road. Right. So like Flower does more basic type drills with them. Before the game, like throwing balls back and forth from a guy, two-handed stuff like that. Yeah. And he but he can do that anywhere, right? Because he's got his guy that does it with him.
5 feet of space, kind of thing.
Exactly. And so I came back, and so then me and a guy in my team, I said, let's explore this. And so we scaled back from like, I'm big on if we're going to do something, let's do the best version of it.
Right.
But then we scaled it back and we did just some more simple drills. And I felt the same effect. It was still maybe not quite as pronounced, but you can get that effect. The main thing is just going through that process and then taking them off and then you're set to go. And so, and I've got that's one of the videos on the site is like a full walkthrough explaining like, here's precisely how to use those.
How to use the synaptic strobe goggles. Okay,
yep, it's got its own video.
Last one.
Okay.
As I'm famous for asking and then asking 5 more. So let's see how many threads this pulls. You mentioned concussions.
Yes.
Something near and dear to my heart. Unfortunately, not so much my head. You see when you have an athlete, they've hit certain levels and all of a sudden they get a concussion, they come back in, you see the difference?
Yes. And I will start with myself. Okay. So, doing this for a living, I've got all the gear here and I went through the training when I was 18. And so I've known what score I get on every exercise in our room in perpetuity. Right. And it was the same for more than well over a decade. Right. My scores were the same. I was in a car accident. Lady behind me fell asleep and gunned the gas pedal and I smoked my head. And so I came in because I had read studies and like I've got to be knowledgeable on this stuff, right? And I knew conceptually what concussions do to the visual system. And I said, well, let me see. And so for convergence, I tried there's like 5 different cards, right? I tried card number 2, which is one of the easiest ones. I couldn't do it and it hurt. I ripped the glasses off and I was frustrated. I was in a lot of denial that I was concussed. I was like, I'm fine. And then my eye movements, I was in a doctor's office. They were checking me for a concussion, and he had this like scarf, red, white, alternating stripes. And he said, all right, follow the red into all the way to the side. And then when your eyes get all the way to the end, pick up the next one and then follow it and follow it. So he did it the first way and it was fine. And in my head, I was like, come on. I do I
train my eyes all the time. I got this.
Yeah. Kevin, he went the other way. I fell off the table, literally fell off the table. My eyes were just glued to that target and they couldn't come back. And I said, what happened? He said, you're concussed. I said, do it again. It's Josh. You're concussed. I said, do it again. It happened again. I finally had to accept that I was concussed. And so
as someone who has thought I was doing a simple thing in different concussion tests and ended up almost on the floor, I can relate.
And I was actually at that time working with 2 NHL defensemen, and they were both here, ironically, for concussion recovery. And one of the early days, they made me go home. They knew that they're like, we know the process well enough.
You were not well.
Yeah, and like I just would stop in the middle of the room and freeze. Like, what was I going to do? And they're like, go home. And one of them told me, Josh, there's a sophisticated way to do this. And these were a bit of more of the old time hockey guys. They said, we had something on the road called the 6 beer test. You have it on the plane and if you get sick, then you're concussed. And so I did try that test and I failed miserably after 2. But current literature, depending on the metric they use, says 80 to 90% of concussions yield some sort of drop in visual performance.
Okay.
And much like the old school approach of lock you in a dark room is going away.
Yeah.
Yeah. More proactive recovery. Yeah. So the visual system, like for me, I'm very fortunate. I had this equipment here. I had to retrain myself. And so post-concussion, this is something that should be on everyone's radar. I know you have to see so many specialists and all this.
Yeah, we're not saying don't.
But it's, oh, yes. And this is one piece of it.
Yeah.
Right. But and I know it could be a lot, but, just one thing I want to impart upon people is recognize that, concussions are part of the sport. And if your child gets one, this is something that should be part of what you look into afterward. And to go one step further, that's part of why I recommend people have the more vision therapy testing done. One is to see where you're doing and see if this is something that can benefit your game. But then also, if you do get concussed later, you have data with which you can compare it. Because if someone comes to me for the first time and my team of optometrists, if they come in and they're like, they score low on convergence or accommodation, I can't say if it's coincidence, correlation, or causation due to the concussion. I know, it's nice to have that pre-data as well. But
baseline. It's a visual baseline.
Yeah, but it's, someone who, even if it's not caused by a convergence, like a kid with convergence insufficiency whose eyes won't turn inward, reading can give them headaches because the eyes are working so hard to just turn inward. And now if someone's concussed, part of it might be if their eyes are struggling to converge now, that's going to trigger symptoms.
Right.
A lot. And it happened to me. And that's where, retraining it helped me in my process to recover.
Awesome. Okay. We're going to have it in the show notes, links and things like that.
Yeah.
But if people want to learn more, just for now, and like I said, check the show notes, folks. But where can they get you? Where can they reach out with questions?
Sure.
About moving forward?
My email is josh@truefocusvision.com.
You're a brave man putting that out there. Where's the website?
truefocusvision.com. My home address is blah, blah, blah. I'm in the upper right.
If you'd like to come take Ollie for a walk tomorrow, I have extra poop bags.
Yeah. So truefocusvision.com. And our Instagram is @goalie.